So, Jutta, so it was time that we got her here to the Agile testing days, right? It's yeah, yes. I mean, I think everybody knows you. I think so. I think so. It's for me when I when I link Agile and in Germany and not only Germany but especially in Germany, that's you. For myself, yeah, for myself, and I think that the most of the German see like that. Yeah, it's your first time here. Like I said, thanks so much for coming, my dear. This is your audience. Okay, enjoy.
Thank you so much. It's really great to be here, and I think it's the toughest slot after the excellent party, so I had a super great time, but I'm also a bit tired today, and lucky me, I'm standing here, so I have enough energy and adrenaline, so I keep awake, but I'm not sure how I would do if I would be in your position, so yeah, so as Pepe said, so I'm around in the Agile field for a long time, and this is also what my books kind of record, my journey through agility. And I'm at the moment, it seems to me, like making the next step for me, which is based on the latest book that I have, what's often called the Bossa Nova book, and the Bossa Nova book ends with this, that we have a responsibility for the ecosystem we are in. And I want to elaborate on this today. For doing that, I would like you to tell me, how do you think Agile and sustainability connect? So if you go to menti.com on your phone, tablet, whatever, and you enter the code 42171115, so you see it all up there, right? Menti.com and the code 42171115, and just put in a word or two or whatever and say, how do you think or feel that Agile and sustainability connect? So it's just like any word that comes to your mind. Should I repeat the code? I know it's... So see, this is easier in the virtual world. You can just... no, you just enter a word. Okay, very good. Ah, that's later. That's something we will do later. Interesting. See. But you can make up your mind on that already. That's good too. Let me see. Okay, and it's all the time that, of course, I need to, can I do this? And does it come up now? Yes, right. Good. Yes. Yes. Okay, that's the 3 words. The other thing is too complicated. Whew, but at least you found the link. That's good. And it's, of course, Gitta's fault because you are working for Menti. Yeah. Okay, so I'm curious to hear, to see what you think, how it connects. Or maybe it doesn't connect at all, so you can also say that, of course, that you don't see any relation between Agile and sustainability. That's also fine. And again, this, yeah, for the people who are coming late, if you go with your phone or tablet to menti.com and enter the code that's up here, 42171115, and type in how you think or feel Agile and sustainability connect. What is kind of a word where you think this is an overlap between the two? And I wonder why it takes so long. So you are saying there is already something there? No? Yes, there's a lot there. Oh my gosh. Okay, this is good. I don't know. Okay, there is massive stuff here, actually. You know, what I do, I restart this, I guess. Let me go here again. No. Yes, that's what I thought too. But can you, I'm not sure if I can see this, but. Ah, that's true. Yes, that's true. But no, I can't. Okay. And now I can go here. That is the connection. Okay, and I haven't thought that this would take so long. So of course now I have to speed up. But we see sustainable pace, we see responsibility in general, adaptability, green token, mental health, perfect match, self-managed, mindset, commitment, bigger picture, awareness, continuous improvement is what I see. It's pretty small for you now because it's on Firefox and not on my slides. Self-organizing teams. So it seems there's really a lot here that's in common. So that's a good thing. Now, the question was a little bit unfair because I didn't say what sustainability really is. And so I first want to say kind of what is it that defines sustainability? And the thing is, actually, it is often understood as looking at the environment, at like the energy and pollution and stuff like that. And sometimes also in the Agile field, like we hear sustainable pace. But if we look into the definition of sustainability, it's actually three things coming together. It's not only the environment. It starts with like the social and the people aspect. So it is the idea of aiming on ending poverty. It is the environment as well. And as the last point, it also has that profit part, which says we try to improve the lives of everyone, everywhere. And the reason why this is, at least for me, so important is that very often when we talk about sustainability and we look only like at for example, this part, which is the one we look at most often, then it could be easy to fix something there at the cost of one of the other areas. You know, you can do really great in your environment, but maybe there are people suffering at the other side of the globe because of the way you are doing it. Or you can only do it because you are not paying them fairly or something like that. So it really is the intersection of the social, environmental, and economical aspect. And this is called the triple bottom line, or also some people refer to it as people, planet, profit. That's why I have this slash with that. So it comes together that you always have to think holistically if you think sustainability. Now, you could argue, well, isn't software always coming to the rescue? I know most of us are in the software field. And it is, on one hand, because we often say, well, we have these e-books, for example, and therefore we don't kill the trees, or we have, which we of course don't like, that's why we are here. We have virtual conferences, so people don't need to travel, and so it's software that's making that possible. So you could argue that software is solving a lot of those problems, but that's only one part of the truth. The other is software consumes a lot of energy, and way more than we all think, and it's rising. So what you're seeing here is a trial for a forecast of energy consumption in the upcoming years. And what it says here is, and that's of course the worst forecast that's up here, is that in 2030, which is not too long from here, that IT will consume up to 21% of the overall energy consumption we have in the world. 21%. This is a lot, right? So this means there is for us a reason to say, well, maybe software is not only coming to the rescue, maybe there's also another thing with it. Just one more point in that direction, which is e-waste, which has to do maybe with software. At first glance, you might think, well, that's hardware. What the heck? Yeah, it's not our fault. However, all too often, the e-waste is created by software. And if you think of how often have you exchanged your smartphone because the software didn't run anymore or because the OS wasn't provided anymore, you throw it away because it's not working. And the same is actually true for the software that we are creating all too often. We don't take care of, like, maybe there is really an old platform and it should still run on it. We just rely on it that people will buy a new hardware and therefore then making the software run. So that's another thing we can look at. Now, I want to share a few examples of those three different pillars, what companies are doing, both good and bad, and hopefully this gives you an idea of what we can do. And I want to first look into the environmental planet part, and this is from Google, and Google now in the sense of using it as a cloud system. And Google is really one of the companies who has discovered that problem very early on, that data centers are actually consuming so much energy. And so they have been starting to work on it like in 2007. And as you can see there, in 2017, they really are based on renewable energy only. And by the way, for all the examples that I'm giving here, I'm not, at least not necessarily saying that this is an excellent company. I know Google has other problems, so it's not that they do everything right and nice and whatever, but this is something that's really on their agenda for a long time. And if you compare it to, for example, AWS, it's completely different. So they have just started looking into that, and they plan on getting where Google is right now in 2014. And some people say, well, maybe because they have a lot of clients in the fossil fuels business, so a lot of oil companies who are their clients. That might be the reason, I don't know. But they have also realized they have to put it on their agenda. Now, well, more people are saying that. So the ACM, which is one of the big communities of IT, there is the editor-in-chief who said, it is time for the computing community to face up to computing's growing environmental impact and take responsibility for it. So for example, if you're on a project where there is this decision, what kind of data center or cloud system are we actually using, maybe you start looking not only into what's technically available and does it have all the features that we need, but also what is the energy consumption? So this is just another aspect to look at what we are using if we buy stuff or use stuff. Now to something different. And you see this is about more the profit aspect. I'm not sure, but I can imagine a lot of you know Chef. Chef is also a cloud system, and it's an open source system. There's also the company called Chef, which provides mainly the support for that for the infrastructure and so on. And what happened with Chef, it's, I'm not sure, I think it's 2-3 years ago, was that people discovered who have been working for Chef that the software is actually used, well, what they knew for a long time, by the ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement in the US. And ICE used that for managing the detention camps, you know, the place where they put the kids away from their parents at the Mexican border. And so this is what they used it for, probably among other stuff. And so it was like a big thing that people said, well, this is not what we want. We never thought that our system will be used that way. And argued with the company to withdraw from the contract. And they kind of didn't react. They said, well, we have that contract for a long, long time, and it always has been like that, and it's good, and whatever. And the arguments went on until the point was that one of the developers said, well, I just take action. And the action was he deleted all the code he had earlier contributed to the open source system. Well, it's open source. And it didn't work anymore, which really provided enough pressure to Chef to really withdraw from the contract. So my point here is, very often we look only at making the client happy, so fulfilling the features the client wants and make the product good, but all too seldom, I think, we look at how is the system really used. And if we look at how the system is used, we, of course, also learn more about what kind of features are actually needed and so on. But maybe we learn also something it would be good to know, because we never wanted to support a system like that, where the kids are, put away from their parents. So another quote here: society is demanding that companies, both public and private, serve a social purpose. To prosper over time, every company must not only deliver financial performance, but also show how it makes a positive contribution to society. Now, of course, Larry Fink, CEO of BlackRock is not necessarily the best company either. So again, you hopefully get my point. I'm not saying that all what I'm quoting here are really great examples, but the thing here is that even he realized that there is more to it, right? And that we have a purpose and a responsibility here in the world. By the way, the EU has decided this year that companies within the EU, it's not enough anymore to report only financially about how they're doing, but also in terms of how they are doing with their sustainability efforts. This is the first step, I think. I have another example, of course, going into the social people aspect. These are my various Twitter examples, and you probably have seen them as well, or for the people who are on Twitter. So this was Shirley posting it, and she tried to create an account and couldn't, because the last name required at least 3 characters. And actually, since I kind of shared this, I hear this from more people that in other software that's the same problem, that they cannot really use it because of something like that. And let me be clear with this example, also the next one. I don't believe that a team who's creating that does that on purpose. It's not an intentional thing. It is more the thing that the team, I guess, is not diverse enough. And therefore, not enough perspectives are within that team. And then you can, of course, also ask the question, well, we cannot have all perspectives within a team. If the team is only 5 people big or 7 or so, there are too many perspectives on the world. Yet, what you always can do is think of the personas you're using, and maybe every once in a while you use one of the personas and turn it to the absolute opposite of what you think is a typical user. And therefore, you can also open up the market for your product to a different audience you never thought you are having. So another social example, and again from Twitter, and people might have seen that as well, the ones on Twitter. This is a video call between those two guys, and they were in the video call quite happy, talking to each other, and then testing out virtual backgrounds. And this is what happened. Yeah. And again, I don't think that people did this by intention. It just didn't occur to them that a darker skin doesn't reflect the light in the same way as a white skin. And this is an example that we have seen more often. The most popular one is probably the one with the soap dispenser, which didn't work with a dark skin. But you see it in other places as well, as you can tell here. So, yeah, there's a lot to do, and again, I believe it's on us to reach out and ensuring that we look at the systems we are creating from various perspectives to ensure it is really inclusive. And by researching all that stuff, I came to a conclusion, and the conclusion then, a friend of mine, Jeremy Kriegel, said, well, I think this is Eckstein's law. So now I promote that as Eckstein's law, which is an organization produces a design that reflects the organization's biases. So whatever you have in your company, and typically the bias is unconscious, that's the big problem with all the biases we are having. So, but we keep spreading that bias in our team or in our organization, and that's a huge problem. And yes, if this reminds you on Conway's law, that's on purpose. Yeah. So, what is my next question? Perhaps you wonder, well, you've heard now sustainability is important, and there's stuff out there, and software might help or not help, and there's stuff we can do, but what does this actually has to do with Agile? Maybe that's another point we should look at. And what it has to do with Agile is that we actually gave a promise. And the promise is written in the visions of our biggest communities we are having in our field, starting with the Scrum Alliance. The Scrum Alliance says, our vision is to be a trusted ally for our members as they create a world of work that is joyful, prosperous, and sustainable. Then we have the Agile Alliance saying, building a more effective, humane, and sustainable way of working. Interesting enough, it's actually the only term that overlaps. And to be really honest, I bet that both organizations haven't looked at sustainability in that holistic way as I do this right now here. But still, here it is. It is a promise. It is there. And there's a little bit more to it. So when I was co-writing that book on Bossa Nova together with John Buck, we, on the one hand, figured that companies who are implementing agility, they all share the same values, which might not come as a complete surprise to you. The values that we found, which are related to what you know from the Agile manifesto, but they are not exactly the same, are transparency, self-organization, continuous learning, and constant customer focus. Now, for those values, the companies are using those for going on their Agile journey. Well, people call it a transformation, which I don't really like that much because it always sounds like there's an end to it somewhere. And that's why I prefer the journey. But however, so you can also think of transformation if it helps you. the one thing that we discovered was that if a company goes on that journey and then claims to be agile, people have an expectation. For example, if that company is not embracing diversity and inclusion, people say, well, but they said they are agile. Or if people learn they're not paying fairly, well, didn't they say they are agile? However, it's nowhere written, right, that this is something that an agile organization has to do. But it is that expectation, which is also the reason why you found so many overlapping terms between agile and sustainability. It has that unconscious, expectation coming with it if you're claiming to be agile and people just think you will take care of that stuff. Which also means, and this is what we found, John and I, that those values actually also have a different definition than the definition that they have when you are looking more or less internally. So I am the company and I go on that agile journey. But I am not an island. I live in an ecosystem. And if I think of the ecosystem I'm living in, then the value definition shifts. And it shifts towards more sustainability. For example, transparency means make the company's action transparent both internally and externally. Or self-organization, regard the company as one node of a global network that creates the environment it lives in together with other companies and societal institutions. Continuous learning, learn continuously from and with society to make the whole world a better place. Constant customer focus, understand the economic, ecological, societal and social environment as a customer that needs permanent attention. To be honest, what I found super interesting while I was preparing for this keynote, you learned that people prepare for keynotes for years and years and years. We heard that yesterday from Raj, I think, right, and that's the other thing. And I was looking for that, and I found exactly that definition in the Bossa Nova book. Well, we were looking at, okay, what does it mean if a company is not an island? But it kind of came to me as a surprise, although I'm the co-author of it, but I never realized that we really provided a definition this way. And so it's also the first time that it's presented this way. Okay, so we had that. So there's one question remaining, which is, of course, now what? And now we are coming again to the Minty, and I'm fear that it's not working, but we will see. Maybe we get it work. So it's the same code. Oh, see, you have started that already. So my question here is, I know you have voted. My question is, in which principles should we look into for exploring the now what? So there are these 12 principles, and I would like to look into some of them by example. And just you let me know which are the principles we should examine in order to find out what could they mean if we are looking at them from a sustainability aspect. And I leave you a little bit. I am happy that it's working now. So see, it is a great tool. If you know how to use it, it works. Very good. It doesn't work? Oh. Oh. Okay, so you can still, I believe at least, you can still keep voting. I will look into the one that's at the moment the highest. That's, what did we say, number 8, right? Let me search number 8. So the Agile principle number 8 is this one. Agile processes promote sustainable development. The sponsors, developers, and users should be able to maintain a constant pace indefinitely. So first of all, what I'm showing you here, it's almost like a tool. I don't like the term here so much, but what we use in workshops, I co-created it together with Claudia Melo. I'm not sure if people know her. And the main thing that we are doing here is looking at what does that mean in terms of sustainability. And now let us look into, for example, the environmental aspect. So the questions you can ask yourself is, does the documentation inform about its resource-efficient use, and is the information easy to understand? Have you ever thought of that? When you look into what you're creating, what you're verifying, does the product use outdated or non-standard technology that makes hardware work harder or requires plugins or other additional resources to run? Let's look, maybe just one on the social part. What might extreme use or unhealthy engagement look like with our product? Or what are different engagement metrics we might prioritize for user well-being online and offline? From an economic point, you can ask yourself, can we guarantee that the current release can be executed on a reference system that is N years old? Remember the e-waste? To what extent are hardware replacement cycles decoupled from software replacement cycles? So these are all examples that you can really use on maybe really your daily work just by thinking of this one principle if you want to make that real and you want to implement or use it also more from a sustainability aspect. Now, let us look back. I think we can look at least into 3 principles, I would think. So what else do we have here? Oh, of course, people just love the retrospectives, right? Always. I do too. So we look into this. So that's principle 12. I'm not sure, can you really read it from the back? Because I use the magnifiers and I'm not sure if this is helpful or not. Okay, I see people nodding, but of course I don't see everyone nodding. So the 12 says, at regular intervals, the team reflects on how to become more effective, then tunes and adjusts its behavior accordingly. So that's, as I said before, it's kind of the typical retrospective thing. But even there, you can ask some questions. And maybe I need it, the magnifier now. How much electricity does the hardware consume when software is used to execute a standard usage scenario? Why not asking that question in one of your next retrospectives? And explore how you find out and what you do about it. Or how can we discover other green components that could go into creating more sustainable solutions? Or from a social aspect, what crimes could arise in or around our product? Seldom we ask that question. And it can have to do with, so a lot of the social part is actually with like privacy, data protection, and stuff like that. And again, it has to do with sustainability, because sustainability are these 3 pillars. Looking at the economic aspect, how could we preserve our company's values and ensure our product isn't misused? So that was the chef example. I just see that. And again, too seldom we think of stuff like that. We kind of ignore and are happy that we delivered what we are asked to deliver, but then we are not looking beyond. And this is my invitation, maybe to do exactly that. Maybe one more, if there is one outstanding. The first one. continuous delivery. Oh, that's the same. Simplicity. Okay, so we need one more vote. Has somebody still a vote free? No. Huh. Okay, maybe we are good in time. So we look at both. So the first one was this one. Highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of valuable software. And actually, I believe well, now I see you all taking the pictures, but still, I think the magnifier is helpful. So what about the second one? What is the level of utilization of the available hardware capacities by the product in idle mode? Well, I know at least on my laptop, there's always stuff doing stuff. And it wasn't me who started it, so there's something going on. And maybe that's also true for a lot of systems that we are creating, because we have something in the background that we are doing there. And of course, it might be needed, but maybe we can do it in a more efficient way. So energy efficient is what I mean. Let's look at the social. Oh yeah, I like that. Can the product service be used to track or identify other users? And if yes, is this how it is intended to be used? That's, for me, a reason for not using a lot of systems. And maybe I have to do some marketing for doing that. So I ignore everything from Zuckerberg, everything. No Facebook, no Insta, no WhatsApp, no nothing. And see, I'm still alive. It's possible. Yeah. Maybe a similar direction. Does our product have the ability to influence people's worldview? And do we have something in place to prevent the dissemination of falsehoods? Oh, we have seen that, right? Anyone remembers the last election in the States? Who? Yes. And, you know, it's not only happening in the States. Just thinking of the pandemic and all the falsehoods that are presented there. Then from the economic aspect, what is the full cost over the lifetime of the product in terms of social, ecological, and economic capital? Oh, have we ever looked into that? I have never looked into that. Well, we think of life cycle typically in a different way, right? Can the product be purchased, installed, and operated without transporting physical storage media or other material goods? I think we are all doing pretty good in that. So there's not much left that's not doing over-the-air something installation. And so this is probably a point that's much better. So now I forgot which one. The simplicity thing was the other, I believe. Number 10. Oh, see, now it has 31, so it's good that I picked the first one. What was that? Number 10. One of my favorite principles. Simplicity, the art of maximizing the amount of work not done, is essential. Oh, see, this is what's interesting, what you see here is the second question is the same one that we saw already. So sometimes we have overlaps that it goes into a similar direction, and it's actually, I think, not a problem to maybe ask that question from different angles. So thinking of simplicity or thinking of regular delivery. So therefore, we don't need to look into that. Let's look here. Oh, can some features be used to spam, harass, target, or exploit other people? Or how can we create or update our technology to avoid harm and promote neutrality? And going with the last one here. Can the product be operated as independently as possible for resources not subject to the user's control? Or does the amount of hardware capacity used remain constant over time as the product is developed further? Seldom it is. Seldom it is. Actually, this is, well, one of my problems at the moment, this last point here. So another story from me privately. So I use as a smartphone a Fairphone. Also not sure if people know that. It's probably not so known in the States, more in Europe. It's a Dutch phone, and it's a Fairphone because it's created with in fair ways. So the mining and stuff like that. So they ensure that stuff is fair, and also it is, I would say, fair to the user. So you can open it and exchange parts. So it's component based. So when something breaks, you just exchange it. And they also promise to support it with the software for a long time. However, mine is now almost 6 years old, and it's really getting harder and harder. So this is why I'm saying, so it's kind of my point right now. Am I at the point that I really have to get a new one? And I still hope for another year. So my hope is to have it 7 years. That was my goal. So we'll see. Okay, so I think I leave it with that. So you get an idea about what you can do. You can use those principles and kind of use them as a trigger to ask different questions that will support you in the creation of the product, but also in the product itself, that it becomes more sustainable. And again, in various different aspects. So I'm coming to a closure here. And so we have time for questions then. So the taking responsibility for sustainability for me is mainly a shift or a change in the questions that we are asking in and around the product. And they should always aim at these 3 pillars. So watching out for our biases or diversity and inclusion, that we ensure that. And from the planet or environment perspective, that we are really accountable for the energy that it's using, that we keep this in mind and are not taking it for granted, but it's, somewhat we kind of do. And then the profit aspect, looking for eventual harm of the product. That could make the world a better place. And I think we are the right people to do that. We are the ones who can start doing that. And then maybe software comes to the rescue. Okay, so thank you so much. You can find me on wherever, not in Zuckerberg's world. We clarified that. Yeah, and I'm happy to hear your questions. Thank you.
Wow, thanks so much. I think it was more than needed. Incredible, yeah, really. Thanks so much. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
So questions?
Everywhere.
Okay.
That's good.
Yogi.
Nice talk, and I'm also not in the Zuckerberg world. Thank you.
Very good.
Have you looked at reusing stuff? Because what I do, I use the most techie ones because I love it, but I give that away to others which have maybe not the money to buy such a notebook, maybe MacBooks or whatever. It's too expensive. Give it to the kindergarten or whatever, that they can use it because it's okay. Have you looked at that consumption of energy? And because you can run such things 7 years, no problem.
Yes. So I haven't researched it, so I don't have any data for it. However, what I have seen or observed during the pandemic, that there are more and more organizations that have been created, probably because everyone was in need of a device. And so I know in my hometown, there's also an organization where they collect the old stuff and they prepare it and then give it away, mainly for pupils who are not having enough money for buying their own device. So yes, that exists. And actually, this question for me goes a lot in the direction, what can we do in our private life? And there's a lot that we can do. And still and I know that at least I feel I do personally a lot of stuff. Yet I don't think this makes a huge difference, to be honest. It makes me feel good that I did that, but it's not the thing that will solve the really huge problems. And it's a great contribution. I'm not want to make this bad, otherwise I wouldn't do it, right? Yet my point with this talk is really to put it also in the professional life and see what we can do there and take there the responsibility. And again, I don't want to make that bad. Thank you for the question.
More questions?
Well, I know he was really the very first, so
Eric.
I wasn't even done and the arm went up, so I think...
Eric.
I'm sorry for everyone else.
Oh, sorry.
I wanted to ask about, when the third slide you showed us, you talked about promoting neutrality. I'm concerned that neutrality implies some sort of disconnect from being engaged with the effects of what you're working on. So I was hoping you could tell me a little bit more about what promoting neutrality meant.
So now I know what you mean. So that was in one of the principles, right? So one of the, yeah, okay. Yeah, we can also look at it again. So this goes into the same direction of ensuring there are no falsehoods promoted. So that you're not, is that the one, right? Is it there? Yeah, I see it here, right. Yeah, so that no falsehood are promoted or marketed and you don't give a platform for stuff like that, but you're more on the objective side, or I would even say maybe, well, depends what we are talking about, more the scientific side. That's what it means. Yeah, okay. Now I know why it was an urgent question, so good that you asked. Okay.
More questions, yeah.
Yes.
So thank you, inspiring. I agree with you, we need to move from the personal to the professional. Do you also think that we need to be starting having the pressure from above professional level, from governments, from other things, so that even the professional areas are forced to do these things? And do you see that happening? Please give me hope.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's this one thing from the EU saying we want to have a report on sustainability efforts. So this is at least something. And yes, probably this would help. I know only that at the moment, the stuff is more an invitation. So for the Germans, I'm sorry for the others right now, but the Germans might know about Blauer Engel. So Blauer Engel is a certificate, most of the people know it only from toilet paper, which is certifying that this is like recycled paper and blah, blah, and energy aware, produced, and whatever. But this is kind of where most people have heard about this certificate, Blauer Engel, which is Blue Angel in English. And Blauer Engel actually has, in the meantime, created a full set of things that you can use to verify the product you have created and if this is really created in a sustainable way. And they have started with something which is easier to get at, but not so many people do that anymore. So they are complete, I would say, for standalone products, but not for software in the cloud, right? And so that's the difficulty, but they have now also started on the software in the cloud and providing a certification, or, well, even if you don't want to have the certification, but maybe it's good because it's a reputation for your product, and so it might open another market for you. So they have started also for software that's not standalone, that can be used, and it's available in English as well. So although it comes from Germany, but it's not an enforcement. And actually, for me, that whole thing is that well, maybe it's my hope, but I say it's my belief that this will become more and more important because the market will decide upon that if the company is taking sustainability seriously or not. So, and the market, what I mean with the market, it's both the clients using the product, but also the talents the companies are looking for. Yeah, Janet.
So not so much a question, but it occurs to me that when I was looking at the word sustainability, and we talk about ilities, the quality attributes, just as everybody here, most of us are testers, but we're all working on teams. If we start thinking about that as a quality attribute, and one of our first questions when we're talking about risks and making sustainability as just a norm, a regular question that we ask when we're talking about it, that's, so I'm going to put it in all my new slides and stuff going forward, but it's something we can do.
Absolutely.
Just by asking those simple questions.
Absolutely. Yeah, so actually the first thing that came to my mind when I was starting researching that topic was that I think every team should change the definition of done.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this is kind of the same direction that you are suggesting. Yeah.
Also not a catch-22 in sustainability, because we want to get poverty out, yet sustainable products are marketed and then are more expensive than the commercially cheap as produced products. So is there not a catch-22 that we want to actually fight poverty and at the same time charge more for sustainable products?
Actually, I don't think it's fighting poverty. It's not. So that profit is part of that triple bottom line also means that, well, companies can and should be successful, but not at the cost of others. So that's what's meant with it. It's not meant that profit is a bad thing. No. Well, the profit is also needed for the innovation and yeah, well, for our living, I would say. So, and on the other hand, also, you're right, it is a little bit a catch-22. Well, the market is still small, I would think. Like, I'm not sure. How many Fairphone users are here in the room? Let me ask that. There, I see 3. Okay. Wow. Welcome in the club. Yay. I hope yours works better than mine. Oh, okay, I have the same. Well, I have still a Fairphone too, you know, it's, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, one more question.
I was very interested that you were talking about the use of computing resources. I think that's something that we miss a lot of people bumping up instance sizes, creating inefficient code and not addressing it. Or crypto. Screw you if you're into crypto. Do you have any thoughts about how to get more focus? More focus on the efficiency of code?
Mm-hmm. That's actually an area where also this blauer Engel is referring to a lot. And yes, that is an important topic. One word on crypto. Luckily, there's also a development that takes this more into account. So the big problem with Bitcoin is that it's based on proof of work. But I would say newer cryptocurrencies, they're based on proof of stake. And therefore, they don't use that energy. So, well, they also need energy, but not in that dimension, just like in a regular kind of software dimension. So there's something happening. I know of, see, I never can pronounce that right. Ethereum, is that? Okay, good. That they are at this time moving from proof of work to proof of stake, which is a really difficult thing to do that. And therefore, I'm pretty sure we will not see that with Bitcoin because it's too hard to have that other verification process there. But they are doing it, Ethereum as well. It's not as big as Bitcoin is. So that well, I said a word, there are many words now. But there's something happening as well. However, I don't see that this will happen with Bitcoin. And I also, here I'm super doubtful that the market will decide and say, well, then I'm going away from Bitcoin and wait till Ethereum is there, or go to ADA Cardano, which is proof of stake currency right from the beginning. Because there's more money to make in Bitcoin, I guess. Yeah, there's another question.
Okay.
If we
I think we need one more.
2 questions even.
Yeah, 2 questions. The last 2 questions, and then maybe not that long, because at some point. I'm sorry. Sorry for that.
Sorry, it's rather a comment. So I think like Bitcoin is not like for crypto. I mean, crypto is not just Bitcoin, right?
That's true.
And I've seen there are too many emerging projects in blockchain which are coming with a sustainable development, with like faster transactions. I mean, I think they will flip. Bitcoin and Ethereum would be also flipped by this. Like Ethereum is already like a super expensive. Like I would just mention briefly Solana, for example. I mean, I'm not advertising, but like it's just it's much cheaper. Just for example, but there are so many more.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Much.
I
Last-
know that
the last question.
I'm not allowed to say anything. I understood that.
Yeah. Hey, Jutta.
Yes,
Oh my God.
that's what I heard.
No.
Crypto is really triggering me, but engineers solving problems is kind of weird because they are also very capitalistic. That's a different idea. Now it's about the sustainability and where the world is going to, and software as a solution, and the responsibility we have as people. And the first thing you showed with that Twitter example, with the name, you were talking about inclusion, and that's maybe your bias. I was thinking, why the hell is that validation there anyway? Because it doesn't add value for the product. A name could even be 1 letter. And that validation in itself causes multiple round trips because it goes to a server. It also causes a round trip on the machine itself, and it consumes energy. So it's a useless validation, growing the carbon thing. So my question is, how could we change our bias as testers, or as because engineers won't fix it, they fix complexity with complexity, which consumes energy and doesn't fix anything in the end. for the world, from world perspective, because the standards we have in the western part of the world, the rich part of the world, isn't sustainable for the world at all, because we don't have the resources, we cannot deal with it, so people will die in the end, and it's the poor people. That's the problem we're facing. So how can we as testers validate the biases of the company and of the solutions we think of and the problems we want to fix? So maybe we should, how can we stop fixing complexity with complexity?
Okay, so what I learned from parts of your question is that I probably can't answer it because I'm an engineer by training. So, however, I still try. So, what the one thing that I shared before was like thinking of completely different personas than we normally come up with. We typically, when we think of personas, we think of a typical user of the system. But turning this around and saying what would be an absolutely, contradiction to that typical user, and would it still work for that person? So that's one thing. The other thing is also the questions you are asking yourself while validation. They can also be turned around and asking something that feels maybe stupid at first. And therefore, again, it's probably kind of the thing that I said as a conclusion. It's changing the questions, I think. This is what we need to do.
Okay.
And again, I'm an engineer, sorry.
Okay. Thanks so much. I don't know if you know that, but you have made an impact here. Thanks so much.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.